Well, welcome back, everybody, to a special episode of 100 Yards of Football. Along with Vincent Turner, I'm Harper LeBel. It's special because we're going to look at the game that's going to take place between Georgia and Alabama and give it some special attention. For obvious reasons, this rivalry dates back to 1895. 1895 is when these two teams played for the very first time, and Georgia won that first one, and they've had hundreds of games. We're so grateful to talk about this one, and in particular about the game that doesn't have an SEC championship right now. But the way the SEC's scheduling goes, these two teams don't play each other but every few years. So we get the luxury of having the number 2 Georgia Bulldogs travel to Tuscaloosa to play on the number 4 University of Alabama. What a great game it's going to be. We're excited to bring you some of the information that you may not know. Let me put my glasses on to let you know. The last time that these two teams played was just last December. On the 2nd, Alabama wins 27-24 in the SEC championship. Prior to that, they played 72 other occasions. Alabama leads the series right now, 43-26, and there were 4 ties. The streak is won by Alabama. They have a streak of 1, but they've won 8 of the last 9 games in 11 of the last 15. So Bama has really had more of a possessional control of the series here over the last decade or so. In the last 9 appearances, 4 of those have been for SEC championships, and 2 have been for national championships. Each has beaten the other and become the national championship. 7 of the last 9 games were also played either in Atlanta or in Athens, and this will be the first time in quite a while it's been played in Tuscaloosa. So my guest host with me is Vincent Turner. Vincent, there have been some great games in the past, some memorable ones especially. Give us your thoughts about which ones have been the most reflective, the ones that provide the most history, and really give an honest gauge of how bitter and competitive this rivalry has been.
I'm going to take 2 games in my lifetime, and thank you, Harper. Go back to the 65 game, Vince Dooley's second season. He's kind of on the hot seat because Georgia don't really know if they made the right decision in bringing him from Auburn. Then you play an Alabama team that's coming into the season ranked number 1, and they had the great Steve Sloan at quarterback. Cleveland, Tennessee in the house. And Georgia upset Alabama that evening 18-17. But it's a play in that game that sticks out, and the Georgia Bulldog Nation knows what I'm talking about. Kirby Moore throws a little pass out to Pat Hopkins, and he does the flea flick. As Pat Hopkins is catching the football, he's falling to the ground, and he pitches to tailback Bob Taylor, and he takes it 65 yards for a touchdown. And then on the ensuing next play, Georgia completes a 2-point conversion. It's Georgia 18, Alabama 17. Although Alabama did go on and win the national championship that season. Then in 1976, I'm an 11th grader at Southside High School in Memphis, Tennessee. The game is on ABC TV, baby. Alabama and Georgia. That previous night, Alabama sneaks into town. They staying at a hotel that nobody doesn't know, right? Some way, somehow, somebody does their investigation work and they find out where the Alabama team is staying at. You know what the Georgia fans did? They went out there where their hotel was and they drove all around that hotel lot, honking them horns. And you know what happened? Georgia ends up winning that football game 21-0. And the thing that stuck out of my mind was that year, that was when Irk Russell, with the bald head, had named his defense the Junkyard Dogs. And they held that Alabama team to 86-yard rushing. And that was the Alabama team that had Ozzie Newsome, Jeff Rutledge, Johnny Davis, Tony Nathan. To me, that's one of the greatest wins in Georgia Bulldogs football history. They came back the next week and got upset by Ole Miss 21-17. They went on and finished the season. The Georgia Bulldogs, they won the outright SEC title that year in 76. Went to the Sugar Bowl, lost to Pittsburgh, led by Tony Dorsett. But that's the memory I'm going to remember, that 76 game. Georgia 21, Alabama nothing. Back to you, Mr. Harper.
How old were you in that game?
I was in the 11th grade in 76.
How about that?
11th grade, 16 years old. And I'm 64 today.
9 years later, I had just graduated from college and was drafted. I didn't make it with the Kansas City Chiefs, but Georgia in early September of that year, 1985, ends up playing Alabama in Athens with 1 minute and 4 seconds left. They come back from a TV break, and Keith Jackson, whether you listen to his account or whether you listen to Larry Munson, go look that up. It is great football entertainment, where the punt by Alabama on 4th down to give the ball back to Georgia gets blocked. It's on the ground. One of the Georgia players knocks it into the end zone, and he falls on it for a touchdown, and Georgia goes ahead. They were trailing 13-9. They go ahead 16-13 with the point after. They kick the ball off from 15 yards deeper because they took a penalty for celebrating in the end zone. And within 4 plays, Alabama scores, and they end up winning the game. The final score is 16-13. So unbelievable. No, it wasn't. I'm sorry. It was 20-16. It was 16-13. Mike Shula ends up leading the Crimson Tide back, and what a great rivalry. This game is just so full of magic moments. Each school has had bittersweet experiences with wins and losses. But as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the Tide right now holds more of an advantage in terms of which way the pendulum is swinging. Sorry about that. Don't hit your camera while you're talking. It's really leaning in Alabama's favor. But Vincent, give me some thoughts about what you think will happen this year.
As I said before on the earlier broadcast we've done, I think Georgia, I'm still going to take the Bulldogs because I think they're a complete football team. I think Carson Beck has not played his best game to date. And one thing, remember this, the guy that's on the sidelines with Georgia, Kirby Smart, when it's all said and done, his career over with, I think he's going to be mentioned in the same Lord that all the great college football coaches has coached this game. And if you know something about Kirby Smart, Georgia, seeming when they had a mediocre performance against a lesser opponent, the following week they'd be ready to play their A game. And I think that's what's going to happen on Saturday night. I think Georgia's going to really come to play. I think Alabama has done what we think they was going to do all year. They have played very good at times. Kalen DeBoer has coached a real good team so far this season. But when it's all said and done, I think the Georgia Bulldogs are going to be the team that's going to walk out on Saturday night. Think about this. This is a squad that's won 40 SEC games straight, Harper, against some top quality talent. And when we look over there in Athens, we don't really look at what they've done so much. It seems like we've kind of disrespected because what they've done has just been unbelievable. We're talking about the toughest conference in America. And I don't want to hear everybody in the Big Ten now, Michigan is the toughest conference because they just won the national championship last year. No. Harper, tell the truth. The SEC over the last 20 years has been the toughest conference in all of football, man, on the college level.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. We're not saying that the Big Ten isn't a great conference. It is, but I'm just saying for you to go week in and week out in an SEC schedule, especially now that you're adding Texas and Oklahoma into that, come on now. There is cannibalism that takes place, like you're living in the jungle, man, between these teams. And I think it'd be interesting. You had a very good point that let's see how the Bulldogs react to that less than stellar performance that they had 2 weeks ago in Lexington. They know they didn't play well, and so did the Riders. They went from number 1 in the country to number 2. Are they going to bounce back in a way that goes, I don't care about that game. That was 2 weeks in the past. We've had a bye week to kind of straighten some things out. Let's literally turn the tide on Alabama. Well, we're going to find out. But Alabama, I mean, if you're going to beat anybody, you better beat them. And as Ric Flair had said, to be the best, you got to beat the best. And so what a great game. I'm looking forward to it. It's so important that there are going to be some special guests, aren't there, in Tuscaloosa? Vincent, what do you think?
Well, to be honest, and I'm not going to tell no story today, I wish I had a ticket and be in Tuscaloosa on Saturday. Can you imagine the hoopla, the partying? Can you imagine the tequilas are going to be flowing? I'm sorry, Harper. Can you imagine that whiskey going to be in the air, food in the air? The barbecue is going to be cooked real well on Saturday. And they got Donald Trump supposed to come to the house, but then they bringing back my man, Joe Namath. September 22nd, 1962, and I didn't know this. It was Joe Namath's first game starting at the University of Alabama as a sophomore against who else? Georgia. He was 10 of 14 for 179 yards and 3 touchdowns as Alabama beat Georgia 35-0 that evening. He's coming back. He's going to be the ordinary captain going out there with the University of Alabama football team at midfield. And can you think about Joe Namath? Couldn't be no perfect person. The chinchilla coat on Broadway, neon lights. And we know Joe somewhere, somehow, he's going to be somewhere in that stadium sipping on that good whiskey. And then you got Donald Trump, the 2 top teams in the country. Oh, my God. The time Saturday morning at 6 a.m. in Tuscaloosa, ESPN Game Day is going to be there with Pat McAfee? Y'all think he was lit when he was in Dublin? I wish I had a ticket. I'm not going to tell you no lie, Harper. It's going to be excitement at all level. On a Saturday night in little old Tuscaloosa, Alabama, all the eyes of the nation are going to be on Saturday night. And 2 very good football teams, coached by 2 very good coaches. You couldn't ask for no better, man. I'm just glad I'm alive to see the game. And I hope I stay alive the next 2 days. But it's going to be special in Tuscaloosa, Alabama on Saturday night.
Yeah, you're looking at a picture of Joe Namath right now. This is a little bit later after his career with Bear Bryant and the Crimson Tide was over. He was just about ready to play in Super Bowl III, where he announced that, we're going to win the game. I guarantee it. Well, there's some of the reporters there. You can see all on the far left with his hands crossed. That's a young Brent Musburger wearing the black shirt at a poolside interview with Joe Namath. So Brent probably was a little overdressed for there, but the guy next to him was wearing a coat. So were some others there. Very interesting photo back from 1969. But glad Joe will be there. Many years ago, Georgia State had played at Alabama in 2010. The second time they went there a few years later, I end up I'm just having a conversation with a couple of the local police that were giving us a ride from our hotel over to the stadium. And I asked one of the police officers, I said, hey, what's the biggest crowd you've seen here? And he says, there's no doubt. We played LSU last year, a game that ended 6-6 in regulation, went to overtime. Mm-hmm. If you remember that game, that's probably 2013, 14, 15, somewhere in that range.
I believe it was 2011.
Not remembering the exact date. I said, what was it like here? He goes, well, there were 105,000 people in the stadium, and there were 300,000 people that didn't have tickets to get in, but they will be able to say, I was there. There were LSU folks that drove up from Baton Rouge. There were folks that were from all over the state of Alabama in the deep south that wanted to be a part of it. They brought their pickup truck. They brought a trailer. They just wanted to have some direct TV access, so they'd watch it from some parking lot next to the bank or next to the local food store, wherever it was. They wanted to be there. I think that this will be a very similar type of crowd where there'll be people on the outside wanting to get in. Vincent said he wanted a ticket. I know you and I sure would want one as well. So thank you for tuning in to this special edition of Georgia, Alabama 2024 on 100 Yards of Football. We want to thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. And if nothing else, you either say Roll Tide or Go Dogs, but it should be a fantastic football game, and we hope you enjoy it.
I got one thing I want to say to the Alabama fans. Leonard Skinner, Sweet Home Alabama.
You'll be hearing that a couple of times. They'll be playing that along with everything else. Well, thank you for tuning in, everybody. For Vincent, for Logan, and for myself, I'm Harper LeBel. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of 100 Yards of Football.